back to the channel. It feels like ages since I've done a bike video. Nearly 3 or 4 months I think since I uploaded the last one, where we did a bit of a review of this after 24,000 miles, the S1000 XR. It's just coming up to 28,000, it'll probably click over that today. I've not had any further problems, in case you're interested. The bike's been absolutely spot on since I did that last review. I've recently been away with Daft Andy up to the Outer Hebrides, and we've filmed some of that, so when I get around to editing that footage I'll put it on. I'll share our tour of the Outer Hebrides with you. What a fantastic place to go if you ever get the chance to go there on the bike or in the car. Wonderful, I absolutely loved it. So keep an eye on the channel, I'll be putting those videos up soon. But I thought it's probably one of the last nice days we're going to get this year before autumn sets in. I thought I'd come out, probably film a few videos today. Before I get into the subject of this video, I should mention the sound quality. I'm trying yet another microphone in the helmet. I've had all sorts of trouble getting decent sound quality on these videos. People complaining in the comments that all they could hear was me heavy breathing. Maybe one or two of you enjoyed that, I don't know, but I have to mount the microphone really close. It's the only, there's not much room in this helmet. I've got an AGV flip front helmet, and it actually doesn't have much room to mount a microphone. So this is the last microphone I'm going to buy. Hopefully sound quality is okay with this one. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. I'm only going to find out when I actually get home and start editing the footage. So in this video I'm going to look at positioning, and a specific element of positioning actually. That's positioning for safety or positioning for hazards. There's lots of reasons that we choose different positions on the road, and actually it's one of the nice things about riding the bike is you've got more options for position, because you're a sort of slim profile on the bike. You can move it much further than you can move a car. But there's lots of reasons for choosing a position on the road. So it might be a following position behind this van, and the advantages of that. I might be positioning here, I might position near side to get a better view around the corner, or I might position offside just to safely roll past the van. When we're cornering, I'm going to do a series of videos today about cornering, but when we're cornering, you know, we're looking to extend the radius of turn as much as we can. So we're minimising the effort that we're putting in the bike and the tyres are putting in to go around the corner. So lots and lots of reasons for choosing different positions on the road. But there's one that trumps all of those. There's one that comes above all of those, and that's safety. So whatever reason you are choosing a position on the road, if there's a safety reason not to, then that trumps it. So for instance, I might want to position near side on the approach to this junction, but if there's a car coming out of that junction, I'm going to position away from the car. It's not the ideal position for the corner, but I've compromised that by moving away from the car. That was perfect timing, that, wasn't it? There's another couple of examples. If I'm approaching a right-hand bend, the ideal position on the approach to a right-hand bend is near side. But if in the near side there's a cyclist or somebody on horseback or something else that's going to stop me taking that near side position, I'm going to choose a position away from that. Not the ideal position for the corner. I compromise my corner entry position, but I do it for safety reasons. So safety comes above everything else. It's quite interesting when you look in roadcraft. Roadcraft doesn't give a lot of attention to positioning, really, in my opinion. Motorcycle roadcraft, it's sort of, there's about 12 pages. Well, there's about 200 odd pages in roadcraft, and it gives you 12 pages to positioning. Don't forget that positioning is a key element of the system of bike control. So you get information, and the first action phase actually is position. So it's one of the fundamental building blocks of all the other stuff that we do in advanced motorcycling, and it's quite surprising to see that roadcraft doesn't give it actually that much space in the book. I suppose with roadcraft you have to accept that it is a training manual. It's a police training manual, and it's designed to accompany a course of instruction. It's designed to support and back up the stuff that instructors are telling you. But even so, I think they could probably do a better hash of putting some stuff in on good positioning. So I'm just going for a bit of a ride into Manchester. I'm just bombing to see my son in the middle of Manchester. going to avoid the motorways, going to go on the main roads. I'm going to talk you through some of the principles of good safety positioning, good positioning for hazards as we drive along the road. Hopefully the roads that we'll be driving on will be what I would normally call a hazard-rich environment, fairly low speed limits, 30s and 40s. Areas where there's lots of things going on. It's a Sunday morning, so the traffic might not be as busy, but you can see there's probably plenty of cyclists, pedestrians, people out with the kids, with the dogs, all kinds of stuff to look out for. So in a previous video we talked about observations and planning. Just softened the suspension off to the road setting. It was a bit hard along there in dynamic. Yeah, so we're making driving plans or riding plans as we're moving along the road, and those plans are based on three things: what we can see, what we can't see, and what we can reasonably expect to happen. And that third element is where we use our experience almost to guess what's going to happen. A bit like this Range Rover driver's expecting me to do, to guess whether he wants to go left or right. I'm guessing left. Oh, there you go. You couldn't write this stuff, could you? If you're wondering, I pay these people a £5 a time to come out and do this stuff in front of me. So there's a lovely view across the Manchester city centre. That's where we're going. Some of the busier urban roads on the way to Manchester. Let's see how the ride unfolds. But just to be clear about the positions I'm going to refer to, I'll just demonstrate before we go any further. Roadcraft refers to three positions. It refers to a near side position, it refers to a central position, and it refers to an offside position. A lot of training organisations, a lot of instructors use a different term. They use positions 1, 2 and 3. They refer to the same things. So position 1, alright, taking into account the cycle lane, position 1 will be here up towards the near side. Roadcraft will call that the near side position. Position 2 will be there, just slap bang in the middle. I heard somebody else refer to this as the sump line. It's the line over which vehicles' sumps travel, centre of the engine, centre of the vehicle. But that's position 2, or a central position. And position 3 is an offside position. Right, again, position 3 is an offside position there, up towards the centre line. And there's different advantages for those different positions. So a near side position gives you a better view on the approach to right hand bends, right hand corners like this one. If I move over here I can get a better view down the road. It also keeps me away from offside hazards, vehicles that might be turning right or potentially turning right across my path. I can move away from them into the near side or into position 1. A central position or position 2, that sort of equalises the risk from both sides. Keeps me equidistant from near side and offside hazards, and it's a sort of general riding along position, isn't it? You'll stick in the middle there. There's nothing really that's hazardous near side and offside here, so I'm going to stick to position 2 or a central position. And an offside position, well, that gives me a better view into left hand bends and into left hand junctions and into near side junctions here. We'll talk about that in a bit. It also keeps me away from those near side hazards. And there's another thing about near side and offside moves, is that it draws people's attention to you. It gets them, it's more likely to be looking at you and more likely to sort of be able to assess the fact that you're driving towards them, and less likely for them to pull out in front of you. Less likely, not completely unlikely. So let's start with a really straightforward principle of positioning. I've got a load of parked cars. I've parked cars on both sides of this road, but it's a good wide road. So I'm not too concerned about the oncoming vehicles at the moment, but I am about the near side vehicles. So when I'm passing these vehicles on the near side, provided there's no reason not to, I'm going to take a sort of position 3. So I want you to imagine somebody's in one of these cars on the near side here, and you know what they do, they just open the door, don't they, without looking. So if you can roll past that car with an open door without having to move your position, then you've got your position correct on approach. Now, it's not always possible to do that. Roads are, you know, some roads are much tighter than this one, much narrower. And if you can't give a full door's width, then you just need to bring your speed down to a point where you could stop if one of the doors open. Now I'm linking that position with my observations. We talked about this in the observations and planning video. I'm looking underneath all these parked cars on the near side. I'm looking for movements of feet, looking for doors potentially opening, brake lights coming on, brake lights going off is a good one. Somebody's about to get out. And at the same time, I'm scanning in the far distance. I'm looking at the 2 pedestrian crossings I can see now. I'm looking to see if there's anybody crossing the road, some kids crossing the road at that crossing. So those lights might change. Hopefully not get caught out by surprise. But all the time, I keep scanning back to these vehicles on the near side. And there's somebody just stepping out into the road away from a vehicle there. And somebody pulling out of a junction here. So my position is position 3. Up towards the centre line. Not necessarily on the centre line, but towards the centre line. Keeps me away from those doors that might open, and also gives me a little bit of space for people who might be stepping out in between these parked cars, and actually it increases that angle towards those individuals as well. So if anybody's looking to cross in between these parked cars, they're more likely to see me if I take an offside position. If I'm really tight in towards the left, there's a good chance they might not be able to see me on approach, or they're going to see me later, or they're not going to appreciate how close I am to them or what speed I'm travelling at. So you notice when I'm stopping at traffic lights or when I'm moving slowly up in between junctions and things, I'm not taking a really passive near side position. You see some people on motorcycles, and it's usually those on sort of lower powered motorcycles who feel a little bit maybe intimidated by the speed of other vehicles and stuff. They take a really passive position 1, they come and stop at traffic lights, and that encourages people to come up alongside them, and then they end up squashed in between that car and or that vehicle and the near side curb. So even if you're driving something, you know, small capacity 50cc, when you're stopping at traffic lights like that, you know, take a position 2. Don't give somebody the opportunity to come up alongside you. You know, even if your bike's limited to 30 miles an hour, there's a limit along here. So think about your own safety and think about just being assertive in your positioning a little bit. So one of the important principles I want you to bear in mind when you're thinking about your position, especially on built up roads like this, but on any roads really, is that principle of keeping and maintaining a zone of relative safety around the bike. So it's really, it's like, imagine, I like to use the term safety bubble. Imagine there's this area around the bike, maybe 2 to 3 feet in either direction, and we don't want anybody encroaching into that space. It's like our personal space. And the more it looks like somebody's going to encroach into that space, the more likely I'm going to be to use my ability to position the bike, move away from them, and just increase that safety bubble a little bit. So if you're choosing not to filter, if you're choosing to go with the traffic like I'm doing today, because I'm not really in any rush to get anywhere, one of the positioning tricks is this one. Think about how close you're stopping to the vehicle in front. You see a lot of people stopping right on the bumper of the car in front. This is both in cars and on bikes. When actually, if there's a problem, we want to be able to get away, get out and get past. So you should always look to stop a reasonable distance behind the vehicle in front. I mean, the term that a lot of driving schools and motoring organisations use is tyres and tarmac, in a position where you can see the bottom of the tyres of the vehicle in front. On a bike it's a little bit different, but you know, you want a reasonable amount so that if, you know, if the car in front stalls or has any trouble, or if an opportunity opens up for you to filter, or if an emergency services rider, for instance, suddenly change your mind and you want to start filtering, you can do without having to paddle the bike backwards. So there I've stopped probably, I don't know, a bike's length or a little bit more behind this Golf. And if I chose to, I could bob up the middle there and filter through. I'm actually turning right here, so I won't do. So the next thing we're going to look at is positioning for near side hazards, like this Golf that's moving away from out of this junction on the left, creeping towards. So as part of that information phase, part of that information gathering process that we go through, observations, planning, if I see a vehicle in a junction, it's not just a potential hazard, it's an actual hazard. That vehicle could pull out in front of us, so I'm looking to see if the wheels are turning, if the driver's looking in my direction. And all the time, what I'm going to do is move my position away from them, up towards the centre line. There's a couple of real benefits to that. The first one we've already talked about. If I move away from these vehicles in this junction, I'm further away from them. I'm maintaining my safety bubble around the car, around the bike, keeping them away from me, and if they do start to move out, I'm already a distance away from them, so I've less to do. Probably just a little bit of braking or a little bit of swerve and avoid, rather than having to move the bike a long way. I'm already a good distance away from them. But the other thing to think about with vehicles in junctions on the near side, and near side junctions in general, is that move from maybe from position 2 to position 3 is something that will draw their eye to you. You've got to remember, as a slender or a slim profile on a motorbike, not that I'm that slim, but I'm slimmer than that Golf in front. It's a really common accident where people say, "I'm sorry mate, I didn't see," and they pull out in front of you. Smidsy accident, they call it. And it's alright saying, well, he shouldn't have pulled out and I have priority, and it doesn't matter when you're lying in a hospital bed. Take responsibility for your own actions. If you see these things occurring in front of you, see them developing in front of you, you know, even though it might not be your fault what that driver's doing, you should really take responsibility to look after yourself and stay as far away from that situation as you can. So if we can move, for instance, from position 1 to position 2 like that, the sort of suddenness of that move, you'll notice I'm not doing it really slowly and gently and carefully. I'm making not a swerve as such, but I'm making a very positive move towards the offside, and that move will get their attention. And the other thing it does is, by moving up to the offside, you're sort of increasing the angle slightly between you and the vehicle or the driver that's in the junction. By increasing that angle, if you're driving directly towards them at 90 degrees, the difficulty for them is that they don't really appreciate how much bigger you get. You don't get a lot bigger in their view, and it's that change in size of a vehicle coming towards them that draws their attention to the fact that you're driving towards them or you're riding towards them. If you increase the angle by moving across to the right a little bit, it sort of decreases that angle from 90 degrees, and it makes it more obvious to them that you are riding towards them and you don't want them to pull out. And we use the same principle for offside hazards as well. So if I'm driving along this 30-mile-an-hour urban road, coming towards me is a vehicle that intends to turn right into a junction to my left, there's a hazard there for me. It's a potential area of conflict. So what I'll do in that circumstance is take a position 1, move over to the left, move away from anything that's coming towards us, and maintain that safety bubble, maintain that area of relative safety around the bike. A bit quick there. This is where I use cruise control in areas like this, just to make sure I'm not creeping above that speed limit. 32 is overreads a little bit the speedo on this bike, so I'm just about bang on 30 now. So let's put those principles into action as we ride along this particular stretch of road. And I want you to see just how much and how often I'm moving the bike. We don't just plough a straight line in position 2 at most of the time. I'm constantly moving the bike around from what I perceive to be the areas that are most hazardous to me, the things that might develop into, you know, one of those situations where you have to take evasive action. And the whole principle of this, I've mentioned this before, is that we're trying to avoid the need to rely on your reactions, and we're trying to avoid those situations where you get caught out by surprise, like by this chap stepping into the road, for example. When I think about COVID, I've mentioned this before, people seem more willing to get run over than avoid crossing the path of somebody on the footpath, which actually is pretty low risk. But there you go, that's how people think in this country. So I'm in position 2 here at the moment. I've got some parked cars on the near side coming up. Looking through the bend, there's nothing really coming towards me, so I check my mirrors and shoulders and move up to position 3 and maintain this position. And we've got hatch markings in the centre, and the hatch markings are there, you know, one of the reasons for hatch markings is to separate lanes of traffic, to make it safer for right turning vehicles. So that allows me to move right up to it. Now I've got a vehicle indicating to turn right, I'm checking the mirrors, left shoulder, and taking a position 1. As we go past it, keep away from it. I'm actually into the marked cycle lane there, although it's not marked particularly well, but it's marked with a dotted white line, and we can use it momentarily if we need to. So up ahead now, the road's bending round to the left. I've got a cyclist overtaking a parked car, being overtaken themselves. So actually what I'm going to do is take a position, and after everything I've said, I'm going to take a position 1.5 here, just slightly away from those oncoming vehicles. And the reason for that is, you know, another good reason for positioning is to avoid some of these horrible defects in the road surface that we've got everywhere at the moment. So I really don't want to drop into any of these really bad potholes and things. So again, it's another good reason, another reason you would compromise your position for safety, to avoid those potholes. Hey gents. Wow. So I'm looking at the crossing now. I'm looking to see if anybody's looking to cross. I've just got a position 2, but I'm moving away from that vehicle in the junction up to position 3. Get his attention, see him look at me. He's looking at me like I've landed from another planet. I know why I'm moving away from him. I've got his eyes on me, that's all I want. I don't really care what he thinks. Now we've got a parked car on the near side and a car indicating right, so I'm just sort of moving to position 1 away from that car, and then out to 3 away from the car on the near side. So by taking position 1, then you'll notice I was doing it on the approach to a junction, so I'm always keeping an eye on that near side junction. I might again need to move away from that, but as we said in the planning video, in the observations and planning video, your plans have to be flexible. So I've got a car here with reversing lights and brake lights on. I'm checking the mirrors and shoulders, moving out to position 3, because the next thing is that car's going to move out. Check there, checking the mirrors, back to position 2 again. And now position 1 away from that oncoming vehicle, maybe 1.5. I can start dividing it into 1s and 1.5s a little bit, because I just still need to keep a bit of caution about that near side junction. Move around that pothole and then away from this car on the near side. And then on approach to this junction, well, if that traffic was going to stay stationary, I would take the lane of least resistance. Actually, as it is, just back to position 2. Those lights changed too late for me to stop. Would have had to really anchor the brakes on, so it was appropriate to go through on the amber. Up to position 3 away from that near side vehicle, back to position 2 again. I've got a car in front, a van in front turning off, so I'm checking the mirrors and the car approaching that junction. So again, mirrors and shoulders away from the junction, and they're pulling out anyway. To be fair, I've left it on cruise and indicated 32, and I suppose it was just on that, but I'm expecting the vehicle in front now to possibly turn off and probably turn right if it does, because it's coming from the left. So looking up in the distance, I can see the road bending round to the left. I've backed off a little bit just to improve that following position, vehicle in front. And there's no lane markings here, so I'm just taking a position 2. A bit wary this Nissan in front. It wasn't brilliant the way he pulled out from that junction in front of me, looking for anybody on the crossing, so I'm expecting him to do some kind of sudden move. I still think he's going to turn right up here. Yeah, I've seen the future. So up in the distance now, just moving away from that car in the junction. Up in the distance, I've got a vehicle turning right, I've got a bus, got people on a crossing. 2 lanes here and somebody waiting to cross, I think. I'm taking a position away from them. Not quite a position 3 here, because I don't want to be right up to the oncoming vehicles, but just away from this person on the near side. Left shoulder check before we go near side past the right turning vehicles, and then we've got the bus coming to a stop. So into this gap and away from the bus. Always look, that's where people cross in front of buses like that. It's really, really dangerous, so always be aware of what's happening with those people who've got off the bus. There's 2 lanes here and parked cars, so it's better to take a full lane, to be quite honest. If there's ever an opportunity to take a full lane to pass parked vehicles like that, it's always better to take it. So my following position now, it's far enough back, it's a large van, so I've just dropped back a little bit. I'm maybe at 2.5 to 3 seconds, something like that, just to improve my view. And I can move my position to get the view. We'll look at that in a future video when I look at overtaking. I'm not planning an overtake here though, not in a 30 limit. And then I'm moving back to position 1 away from the right turning vehicle, and then out to position 3 again past the parked vehicle. So as you can see, I'm not quite swerving along the road, I'm not quite doing a constant slalom, but there is a lot of movement, and it's all in anticipation of things that might happen. You've seen at times that those things have happened, and you've seen at other times that they haven't. The idea is to get yourself prepared and get yourself ready, remove that element of surprise, and stop yourself from needing to rely on your reactions. If you're relying on your actions, you're not making your plans properly. So that's it for this video. That covers the basics of positioning for safety or positioning for hazards. Anybody who's preparing for an advanced bike test, perhaps this is something I'd like to see a bit more of from candidates on test. I seem to give a lot of just about okay marks for positioning, or actually failing people for positioning as well. I think if there's one thing I fail people for on test more than anything, not that I fail a lot of people, most people are pretty good and come along and pass the test, but of those that I fail, I reckon a good 75% have been something to do with road positioning, or not positioning enough, or not recognising developing hazards, and actually sometimes moving towards those hazardous situations rather than away from them. And unlike an advanced car test, if you're on your bike test, you're not really having a conversation with your examiner. Some of them might use a radio just to give you directions, but apart from that, they're not telling you what to do, and you can't share your thoughts with them. So if I see somebody taking good, positive, early decisions about positions on the approach to potential hazards, you know, that's a really good clue for me that those individuals are looking in the right place, they're making good riding plans, and they're appreciating the sort of hazards that I'd expect them to spot on an advanced bike test. And in my opinion, this stuff is the stuff that will save you from a bump. 2 reasons motorcyclists fall off: they get knocked off by somebody else, or they fall off because they're going too fast around a bend. Those are the 2 classic examples of bike accidents. Now, I may be summarising that a little bit too much. There's lots of reasons for accidents, but if you're going to get knocked off, it's generally going to happen in these areas, in the hazard-rich areas where there's lots of things happening. So the more you can use your position to keep yourself safe, the better that is, and the longer you'll last. So yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And press the notification bell, the little button with a bell on it. You'll get an email every time I upload a new video. I'm planning to upload a bit more bike content over the next few weeks. Going out today to film a series of videos on cornering, going over to the Peak District. So I'll be uploading those over the next few weeks. Let me know about the sound quality as well. I've not really gone much above 50. This clown. So I'm getting undertaken and overtaken by these 3 bell ends. Right, you're on YouTube, fellas, there you go. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you want a bit more information about advanced and performance driving and riding, go and have a look at the website, reslocal.com. Loads more information there. Information about the books and driver and rider coaching services that I offer. If you want to come and have a ride out with us, give us a shout. We'll sort something out. But for now, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.